My company is TechIreland. We track and promote the tech community in Ireland. And previously, I managed the state investment in startups in Ireland. And I'm very impressed with the event today, and congratulations to the performance, and welcome to you. We have three really experienced investors on the panel, and we've got, as Roseanne just mentioned, we've got Saeed and Qusai and Tamer. Maybe start off by asking you guys to introduce yourself, maybe, and tell us a little bit about your business and the tech and investments that you're making.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you. My name is Saeed Al-Mandhari. I'm the Group CEO for Oman ICT Group ITHCA. It's a group which is owned fully by the Sovereign Fund of Oman. We are considered or mandated to be the strategic investor for the government of Oman on the ICT sector. We do have multiple stages of investments. We have initially started with lots of VC funds investments and ecosystem building, up to the equity investments and as well as strategic investments outside Oman. That's in a nutshell.
Thank you, John. It is always a pleasure to be back in Jordan. I'm Qusai AlSaif, co-founder and CEO of Sadu Capital. We're an early stage VC firm based in Riyadh, and we invest across MENA, and Jordan is one of our target markets. In addition to that, I have an additional hat that I wear. I'm the CEO of the Saudi Venture Capital and Private Equity Association, which is an NGO that helped develop the ecosystem and lobby for regulations in Saudi.
It's really nice to be here and to see everybody again. It's always a pleasure again to be in Jordan. My name is Tamer, and I'm a partner at Shorooq Partners. We are an investment firm with multiple different products. We have an acceleration program. We have a VC fund. We have a venture debt fund. We manage about $250 million, and we're very lucky to have many of the region's sovereign wealth funds as LPs. We invest from pre-seed all the way to Series A, from Morocco all the way to Pakistan.
That's great. Maybe start off then by questioning Qusai, I guess, and just asking you, okay, your tagline is "We invest in change," I think, or something like that. So tell me a little bit about the changes in the environment as you see it, sort of as we move into the next phase of I suppose the whole life cycle of investing in tech startups.
Definitely, yes. Thank you for checking our website. That's our tagline. We invest in change, and for us, we believe that venture capital banks on the ability to disrupt an existing market. If you're just going to add an add-on and price it slightly more, you're not investing in change. So we need to be somehow disruptive, and we've been in a changing environment for the last 3 years at least. Saudi had been in a changing environment for the last 5 years. We had a young ruler which embarked on a lot of change, so that was a lot of change for Saudi. Then the COVID hit, and that was a lot of change in the way we live, healthcare, logistics, etc. But it's tough to predict where things are going and to invest, especially for us. Our livelihood is based on predicting where the future is going and investing in the right time with the right people and the right technology to make money out of that. It's not easy. We definitely learn through reading trends, historical and global trends. That helps us hone our experience to predict where this is going. But we also make mistakes. That's why we invest through funds. Funds have more than 20 to 30, depending on the fund. You have many companies, and we can have multiple opportunities to make money there. But I would love to talk about a specific sector, if that's a question.
Okay, perfect. Well, in the general sense, and maybe I was speaking to Tamer sort of last night, and you were saying there were three things that kind of were changing the scene from your perspective. Tell us.
Yeah, so much has changed in the past few years, and we're seeing sort of three main major shifts in the market. The first one is that for later stage companies, so A or later, the valuations have dropped significantly, close to 30% or more. We are seeing a drop in earlier stage companies in terms of valuation, but not as dramatic, right? So folks in the pre-seed, seed, and pre-A stages are still raising not as high valuations as before, but they are. We're also seeing that in our local or regional market, we don't have sufficient growth capital. So when we take companies at the Series B stage or later to global growth capital investors, we're actually seeing them significantly less enthusiastic about single market plays, right? So if you're not present at the Series B in multiple markets, raising a Series B round becomes exceedingly more challenging. Finally, we're also seeing, I forgot the third one, John.
The third one I think was that you said companies really need to focus on larger markets.
Right.
Yeah, single market is no longer enough.
Yeah, that's the single market. That's the second one. The third one is that we're seeing the mentality of growth at all cost and the mentality of subsidizing growth all but disappear. Now, we as humans have very short-term memory. This will come back once capital becomes cheap, but today there's a fundamental focus on unit economics. There's a fundamental focus on sustainability, and as capital becomes more and more expensive, people are being a lot more focused on unit economics of companies. So the three, again, are lower valuations, and growth stage requires more than one market, and number three is that people are giving up on growth at all costs, subsidizing growth in exchange for sustainability. These are the three sort of main things that I've been seeing.
Great. And Saeed, what's your view, or what's Oman's view on how things are changing?
Well, actually, the market demand is one of the things which drives the changes. Despite the fact that there is a slowness in investment on the VC itself, but the reports, specifically the latest report of Gartner says the IT spending will keep increasing in the next future. It's like it will be about $4.4 trillion by 2022, and it will experience a growth of not less than 6% compound annual growth rate for the next 3 years to reach to $5.8 trillion. And that's a big amount where the opportunities will come big, despite the fact of the slowness of these VC investments on this year, or maybe expected at the first half of next year. But still, the demand and the change will be forcing itself because the market is huge. Now, what will frame these changes will differ from country to country based on the investment environment. Some of the countries have a softer regulation and a friendly environment for investments, and that will be softer to have adaptation for changes. Other countries will be difficult to have it because they will run through the legacy of or constraints of the changes. So all of these will play a big factor on the changes, but I think the change would enforce itself on the upcoming years, and the VC would have a big portion of this change.
And do you think countries should kind of try and encourage specialization, focus on specific technologies, or should countries go for kind of general kind of approach?
Yeah, I think there's three factors force the countries to decide to go diverse or to be specific. The first factor is availability of the resources. Now, it wouldn't be wise that countries will diversify if they don't have enough resources to invest in. It would be more wise to focus and have a specific niche to be unique in. When I say resources, it's not only a financial resources, human capital as well plays a big role on the VC as well. It's not only the financial capabilities. Second factor is the competitive advantage of some of the countries. Some of the countries are financial sectors or financial centers for the region, so it might be wise to have an investment on a fintech. Some other countries are agriculture or fisheries, and agri-tech or biotech would be as well an investment. So that diversification would be less wise to go for than a focus on those. The third factor of deciding whether it is diversified or specialized is actually again, the environment of the market. If the environment of the market is allowing the investments in specific sectors to be, specifically in here, I'm referring to financial sectors. So if the regulation within the countries are not actually flexible on the fintech, then it wouldn't be wise to invest on the fintech, and it would be automatically driven to focus on a specific region. So these three factors would always drive the countries to specifically decide whether they want to go for a niche of investments or a general investment. We are in Oman, for example. We started 2016 with the general investments. We started now streamlining and identifying. We've understood the market. We understood our capabilities and our resources. I think it's wise now to narrow our investments. We have seen some other countries like Bahrain, for example, they've have gone in a financial sector investments heavily, and that's wise as well, seeing themselves capable of doing that. Saudi Arabia have gone with a bigger and wider investment paradigm because they have that financial and human capital resources. So again, these three factors will play around with the decision.
Qusai, what do you think? Is that Saudi Arabia is large enough to be able to cover all the bases, is it? Or do you guys have a specific focus as well?
Definitely, Saudi is a G20 economy, so it ranks amongst the top 80, 20 economies, but I think Saudi today is 16, maybe 17. Yeah. And that allows that country to be capable of embarking on different frontier. However, we're lucky to be situated amongst neighbors. So Jordan has an amazing talent that can flourish in Saudi. UAE and Bahrain are great financial hubs, and we can interact with each other into seeing these opportunities scale. The success of Careem did not happen because it's a successful company in Saudi or a successful company in UAE. Careem is a unicorn because it succeeded in Pakistan, UAE, Egypt, Saudi, and many other countries. Which Tamer mentioned the size of the markets. I think even that Saudi is large enough, having Egypt and UAE and many other countries around it to increase the size of the opportunity will attract more founders to embark on an entrepreneurial journey, will convince more investors to invest into the region. So that is exciting, but Saudi cannot flourish alone.
Yes, yes. Tamer, you've got offices in Bahrain, in Cairo, Riyadh. You have a good view, I guess, of the region. Are there specific kind of areas that you would say have real strengths, or if you were looking at the different regions, what would you say are the relative strengths, I guess?
So we do have 6 offices across the region, and that's because of exactly that opportunity. The biggest challenge that we have as a region is that while we are a region, we also aren't one, right? We have different regulations for each country. We don't have unified systems across. So going for an Egyptian company to go into Saudi or to go into the UAE is just the same as going to Norway or to London, right? So we see ourselves as a region culturally, but from a regulatory perspective, from a systems perspective, from a even customer base perspective, we are very fundamentally different, right? And to solve for this, what you do need is you do need boots on the ground, right? We cannot just project ourselves into a new market and expect it to work out. Every single one of our markets is very, very different. The opportunity does exist. If we could, by some miracle, figure out a way to have a unified sort of system, that would be much more helpful. But the opportunity continues to exist, and by having boots on the ground, we can actually leverage that opportunity.
And Qusai, I mean, is the region attracting international money as well as local? And I suppose, what's the role of local financiers in terms of attracting global finance, I suppose?
Oh, that's a very interesting topic. We've seen what made a big difference in MENA is the establishment of fund of funds. Saudi established a couple fund of funds. Jordan established a fund of fund. Egypt, I think so. They have not one, multiple fund of funds. UAE had 5 fund of funds. That created a local GP network, a number of local VCs, and those VCs kickstarted the investment in tech companies. But lately we've been seeing pre-pandemic and maybe some of them post-pandemic, but mainly pre-pandemic, we've seen Sequoia invest in, if I'm not mistaken, Fudix, SoftBank investing in Uniphonic. These are companies we've invested in early stage.
Early stage,
I think in Egypt there are multiple companies that attracted Sequoia, YC, and many others. So the region is becoming more and more important globally, but I don't think that's the full potential of the region. There are some ironing out. We need to streamline our regulations, our standards, and make it easier for people to move across borders. There are a few things that we can do, but we're in a good place. I want to celebrate where we are today and maybe hope for more in the future.
And so, I mean, Oman has been very successful, I think, at attracting international finance as well.
I think I would support what Qusai have said. I mean, the international investors would look at the maturity of the markets and the culture or the investment environment. And this has been growing and getting matured with the time. Unfortunately, it didn't start earlier, but in the last 5 to 7 years, this have started progressing very well. And that was one of the reasons that more attraction of investment have started. We've started in Oman, as I said, in the first VC fund was in 2016, which is about 7 years ago. Today, this fund is very matured and managed to attract an investment from outside. Has a good relationship with lots of GPs around the region. The maturity of the investments have been improved a lot. So the international investment becomes after having a good record in this investment. So I think now the region started getting this record, and I think the environment is very healthy to be attracting international investments.
And when Roseanne was introducing, I think she said something like, has COVID-19 changed VC appetite in terms of sectors? So I suppose I'd just like to ask you guys, in terms of sectors then, just let's kind of go down through them. I mean, in terms of attractiveness, I mean, fintech, I mean, is that still kind of the favorite kind of sector? I mean, if any of you like to make a comment on fintech, are you guys long or short on fintech?
I mean, half of our portfolio is fintech, and we have 60 portfolio companies. So we are quite bullish on it. But honestly, it depends, right? So in markets like Egypt, tech companies are still solving very fundamental problems. And that's what gives them the enormous scale that everybody likes about Egypt. It's because people are still solving really basic problems. Access to finance, access to education, access to healthcare, right? Food. So these are the companies that are doing exceedingly well in Egypt because they are replacing systems that are either no longer capable of managing the population or are inefficient. Right? And that's what's attractive about Egypt. When you tackle massive problems and you solve them, that's extremely attractive. When you go to countries like the UAE, then you will start seeing some really much more sophisticated companies that are solving infrastructure problems.
Yes.
Right? Fintech rails, open banking, because the basic sort of issues are resolved and they've moved on to a different stage of the creative economy, right?
Yeah.
And each nation has a different sort of has different building blocks, and if you find the right company that matches the right market, that's when you get good traction.
Definitely the appetite for investment had decreased, influenced by political and economical instability. However, if we focus on the pandemic effect on investment and sectors, we've noticed that pre-existing trends had been accelerated through the pandemic. If we take few examples, retail. Pre-COVID, I used to talk to a few friends of mine who have big businesses in the retail industry.
Yeah.
And when we talked to them about e-commerce, they were, okay, it's going to be there. We're going to try it out. We've hired a guy.
Yeah.
They took it seriously during the pandemic. And finally, the e-commerce sales had exceeded offline sales. That is a very interesting change.
Yeah.
And we cannot have a flourishing e-commerce sector without a backbone of a logistical infrastructure that can support the movement of people and goods. So these e-commerce logistics had been accelerated in a way that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
If you may allow me to also talk about fintechs. Maybe I'll mention a stat on Saudi Arabia. In 2019, 44% of all payments in Saudi were digital, and the goal was to reach 70% by 25. Last year, it was 66%. So I think the central bank is very happy that they achieved their milestone. That was influenced by not wanting to touch currency at all. Health and wellness. We've seen the spike of mental health apps globally. All of them made really well growth stories during the pandemic, but they're not now plateauing. Apple is investing in fitness at home. There will be a lot of trends that we will discover, but some of them are easy, which got fixed and invested in during and after the pandemic, and some of them are long-term that are going to take a while. For example, healthcare is a heavily regulated industry. It would take a lot of time for it to be influenced by the pandemic. However, during the COVID, a lot of regulations were suspended somehow. And instead of taking 3 years to get a COVID vaccine, it took 6 months or less. So yes, it was a tough time on the global economy and the global livelihood of people. However, it was really positive on allowing for new ways of doing business and allowing entrepreneurs to take on new opportunities.
And Said, what have you got a focus or a particular favorite sector that you like, or technology that you're?
Again, I would support what Tamer and Qusai have said. At the end, it's not related to the pandemic itself. It's more of what they need. Tamer have identified that in Egypt, for example, they've gone to what the people need, and that's a market demand. Additionally, on top of that, you would always there is an opportunity from all the problems. So pandemic have helped some of the sectors to grow faster than expected, and that's why that's why the food tech and the healthcare and all of these sectors have improved. Now, I don't think the appetite of the VC or the investments on the technology have declined, but it's more of from the macro economy perspective that the up and down. It's people or the investors currently are focusing more on energy and alternative energy and biotechnology more. But that's again the demand of the current political situation in the region. How much that will be looking forward to have the investments, I think this is going to change. The people's sentiment is always to invest in the fastest growing sectors.
Yeah.
ICT is still the fastest growing sector, and I think it's still making a disruption in all other sectors. So this makes it a very trusted sector for an investment for all the investors.
And it's broad brush. I mean, it covers so many different markets and what have you. And just kind of before we kind of wrap up, the kind of the darlings of kind of blockchain, NFTs, crypto. I mean, sort of they don't feature in as favorites, I guess, or do they? Or do you think there's still life in those?
So Shorooq has a fund.
Yeah, we do, and we have an allocation for this. I think there are quite popular, but I think there's a really important distinction to make here, right? So Web3 and blockchain, it's just a parallel network of more efficient infrastructure on which to run companies, right? So you can get a company that does Q-commerce on the blockchain. That doesn't make it additionally any special, right? It's still delivering groceries, right? While maybe the relationships are governed by the blockchain, efficiency, the company is more efficient, it's able to do better, it still is an infrastructure layer. Right? So there's two types of companies in the Web3 universe. There are companies that are exactly the same as Web2 companies. They're just running on Web3 infrastructure. And then there are infrastructure players and companies that are building for Web3 companies. Now, these are actually considerably more interesting, right? Because you are actually owning a piece of real estate on the new internet.
Yeah.
If you are building new, exciting, and these are very few. Right, so in our pipeline, I'll get thousands of companies that are now Web3 companies.
Yeah.
Many of them are not doing anything exceedingly special or different, right? So what you're looking for now is folks that can give you access to real estate ownership on the new internet. These are interesting.
And in terms then of kind of a wrap up, because I can see we're almost ready to finish here. And Tamer, I know that you've got another session immediately after this. What kind of advice now would you give to, because, okay, 2021 was a record year in terms of funding. Certainly this year, there's a coldness about, and next year, who knows what the future will bring. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs now, as they seek to raise investment?
I think the fundamental advice never changes. Build something that is useful and helpful to people. If you build something that's useful and helpful to people, people will buy it.
Okay, make it like that. Yeah.
I agree. With every wave of technology, there will be different ways of offering products and services, and that creates a gold rush. So crypto has witnessed an amazing momentum for the last 7 to 10 years. With every new asset class, there is a lot of people wanting to invest, a lot of people wanting to innovate, and a lot of that is not going to be useful. A lot of that is not going to offer a differentiated way of doing business. So for us investors and people investing in these things, be careful, choose wisely, and diversify as much as you can. And for founders, as Tamer said, you need to offer a differentiated experience, a differentiated offering using any technology.
Yeah.
Today it's blockchain, big data, AI, and in 10 years it's going to be something totally different. So if you're doing e-commerce with AI experience, if it's not making the experience unique, it's not going to last for long.
Yeah. I think my advice is to keep innovating and investing on the entrepreneurship, whether it's countries or individuals. The thing is that this sector is disruptive and is touching all the other sectors. So it would be always an opportunity to scale up and grow. So anybody who works in this sector or invests in this sector would be always in a safe hand.
Okay, great. Okay, well, I think that kind of covers what we were going to talk about. I just a quick walk through earlier on the startup village. I mean, there are really some really innovative companies there. So maybe the best way to learn about startups is to talk to 10 or 15 companies out there and ask them, you know, what are you making better, or how are you what problem are you solving, and you'll learn a lot. So. Thank you very much to the panel, and I'll hand you back to Roseanne. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this was very insightful to learn about, you know, the new sectors, the VC appetite, and so on. Moving further, I think it's important to have the GCC views on Jordan entrepreneurs and startup. Jordan has a rich pipeline of startups incubating in Jordan and growing across the MENA region and beyond. Regional startups also set up their operations and kitchens here and then go further. What are the views on this ecosystem? Please welcome my colleague Ziad Al-Masri moderating the session of our honorable speakers, Yusuf Al-Bulusi, Suad Al-Shakif, and Amer Fatayr. Thank you very much.
Sorry, it's ليه في الرفعات؟ تفضل تفضل أخي يوسف.
نتحدث يعني قبل المعذرة منكم.
Yes. Thank you everyone for being here today. Again, just a few logistical points before we start with our esteemed panelists. The Investor Lounge is starting now, so if you have meetings as VCs or as startups, the Investor Lounge again is in Mount Nebo, same floor, just across the startup village. Takes you one minute to get there. In front of it is the B2B meetings. And as a reminder, at 5 p.m. today, there's going to be a startup competition. 30 or 28 startups are going to provide their 2-minute pitch deck, and with 4 judges. A very simple, casual startup competition. Thank you very much again for being here with us, Mr. Yusuf, Sayyid Amer, Ustaz Laif, Sadiqna Al-Aziz. Jordan has a rich pipeline of startups, incubating in Jordan and growing across the MENA region and beyond. Regional startups have also set up their operations and kitchens in Jordan. We're going to talk about what's the view of VCs on the ecosystem, and then the last 15 minutes is going to be open for a Q&A. If you have any questions, you can easily ask them. Before we start, can we have a small intro from each of you, your respective fund or entity, and some stats on your investments post-COVID? Number of investments this year, any Jordanian startups on there, and is there any concentration on a certain sector? Ustaz Yusuf من عمان, تفضل.
شكرا جزيلا.
Mike, please, on. تفضل.
Thank you very much, Yusuf Al-Bulusi, Acting CEO of Oman Technology Fund. Actually, Oman Technology Fund has been initiated in 2016 as a result of national discourse related to creating the ecosystem, the innovation ecosystem in Oman in particular, and then also to bridge the connectivity with the MENA region. Since inception in 2016, the idea of the concept of Oman Technology Fund is actually to cover the whole spectrum of the journey of startup companies from pre-seed all the way to seed and series of development. We have actually 3 micro funds. One of them is, we call it Takween, which is the pre-seed and incubation fund. The second one is Wadi, which is accelerator fund, and the growth. All of them has different stages and different ticket size. Number of investments being actually approached, and we actually proud of having very strong cases, especially in the MENA region. And I would say Jordan startup companies is actually considered one of the best startup companies that we have been invested since 2016.
Before we go on to Laith, how many Jordanian startups have you invested in?
Well, now, as we speak, we have actually 5 startup companies into accelerator fund, and more than 4, I think it's 4 now, in the growth fund from Jordan. And some of the startup companies has changed or changed their, they shifted from Jordan to other places in MENA region. However, we are still actually having in the pipeline number of them.
Very good. We'll talk about it, why they shifted in a bit. Ustaz Laith.
Laith Izriqat, Senior Partner, Arzan Venture Capital. Arzan VC, for short. We've been investing since 2015. We're an early stage venture capital fund. Started with a small fund, invested in companies such as Kareem, Swivel, Icon, and many more. We have now 45 companies across 3 funds. Our 3rd fund just kick-started with 2 investments just in the past 2 months. We have 12 companies between Jordanian-based and Jordanian founders in the region and globally. Our definition of Jordanian is a bit more on the long-term impact than on short-term specific headquarters, geographic location. And I'll explain a bit about that maybe in the discussion. We have 9 exits in the portfolio, 4 of them Jordanian, 2 really good with really good returns. Our 3rd fund is going to continue along the same lines, investing from seed up to Series B. We're a team of 8 distributed between Kuwait, Dubai, Amman, Cairo, and soon to be in Saudi. Our 3rd fund is 100 million, investing up to Series B, like I said, and from tickets between 200K up to 5 million.
Okay, great. We've got a few questions after that, a few points later on after we get the intro from Ustaz Amer.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Fataya. I'm actually Jordanian, so it's good to be back and see all the flies still alive and flying over.
We need the startup on the flies.
Yeah. So Dubai Future District Fund is a new fund that was incubated by the government of Dubai, or 2 government entities in Dubai, namely the ITHCA and the Dubai Future Foundation. Our mandate is quite simple. 1, back the economic development of the ecosystem in Dubai for early stage startups. So pre-seed and seed program is called Build, and it's dedicated to back Dubai Future District incubated or operated entities. And the second part is a second program is called Catalyze, which is for Series A on, and that's backing regional startups with, let's call it value add to the Dubai ecosystem. It doesn't have to be incubated, but it has to add something to the ecosystem in Dubai. No strings attached, so unlike the other government funds, we're adding no strings attached, but we need to understand the Dubai story, and it needs to be a natural fit rather than a forced fit. The second part of our fund is to invest in other funds. So we have a fund of fund program, and that's backing both regional as well as international funds looking to deploy and partner with regional funds in the region.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure.
Sayyid Youssef, you've invested in a lot of Jordanian startups, as you mentioned, across the whole region. And you mentioned that they start here, they move why do they move? Or is it a legal aspect on there? Or do you push them?
Well, I think the most thing that actually, as Oman Technology Fund board, as a board member, and also with Mohandas Saeed within the ITHCA that owns Oman Technology Fund, we have actually tried to sort of do some exercise of the anatomy of the startup companies. And the main actually carry on or takeaways through that exercise. We have actually identified a number of countries that includes Egypt, Tunisia, and Jordan. We definitely try to understand what's so special on those three countries. And mostly is not about having number of startups, but talking about the quality of the startups, knowing about the pressing problems that can also attach to what the region needs, and also the scalability of the ideas and the startup companies. If I may, let me share some
Please.
of my previous experience in 2017. In Boston, I was honored actually to meet with Her Highness Princess Sumaya during AAAS conference, Science and Technology, and she hosted actually an event to welcome number of what's so-called science and innovation diaspora. And that actually clicked in my mind, and I asked Her Highness, are you trying to build sort of ecosystem in Jordan? In fact, the idea she actually insisted it, that Jordan has ambitious strategic goal to go and strengthen what's so-called the ICT sector and the startup companies, and that actually very unique in not only tapping into Jordanian students or innovators, if I may, in that they are based in Jordan, but they also have actually included every Jordanian aspect related to that, includes also the diaspora. And this morning, the opening session, we all been proud to have the Jordanian scientists who actually heavily engaged with NASA and the space technology. And myself, I have also met number of science and innovation Jordanian diaspora. I would say that component in itself actually empowered what's so-called the internationalization orientation, or international orientation of every single startup ideas and the ecosystem, starting from the Jordan and then oriented to scale it up beyond the periphery of the geographical space. So, of course, this is, I would say, maybe the most critical, from my point of view, aspect of having a unique pipeline ideation and startup production, I would say creation, from Jordanian, because of course this comes on top of political willings. His Majesty himself is looking after that sector, and also the government, and bringing very productive ecosystem starting from Jordan. In fact, I'm coming to this MENA ICT group, ICT forum, is not to give you the answer. I'm here to ask you more about what's so strong, what's the unique that bringing remarkable startup companies from Jordan. It's not only, again, it's not only the number of this or the companies that have been announced and celebrated of. I'm talking about the entrepreneurs themselves, the DNA of the entrepreneurs.
Okay. Yeah.
The ability to adapt within different challenges. This is actually something very unique here. We have witnessed it. I'm actually talking about a perspective of Oman Technology Fund, of course.
Okay, Laith, I mean, you've invested, as Arzan, I've invested a lot of startups, Jordanian startups, a few exits. And how do we answer Yusuf's question? What's the DNA? What makes us unique? Is it technical? Is it marketing? Is it our small market makes us want to grow faster, better?
Yeah, I think it's obvious, but it's always good to state the obvious. You know, we're a small market. There's very little to go around in terms of money, jobs, and opportunity. Now, this is why Jordan has always strived to innovate on multiple levels. People, education, and government. I mean, education has always been a very important, focal point for the government since, days of His late Majesty King Hussein. I mean, education. Jordan used to be where people wanted to send their kids to study. If they didn't want to send them to the U.S. or Europe. So, and this produced, over generations, this produced a very enlightened, very motivated generation of workers who wanted to be entrepreneurs when they didn't find the appropriate job, whether it's position, job description, or pay. And I think we noticed that, in our GCC neighbors, where you could just get a job or get a salary even without getting a job straight out of college, for some very fortunate countries, that kind of delayed that innovation movement. And now we see it picking up and catching up because of the pressing need to move away from oil-based revenues and oil-based economies, because the future will not look very bright now where the world is heading. So this is, what we need to be conscious of is DNA, not literally, right? It's DNA by upbringing, by culture, by necessity. We are not special in terms of our actual DNA. This is not a race, theory. So we need to be very conscious of what made us and not be oblivious or not denying that other ecosystems, other countries in the region are also going to eventually catch up. Now, this is something I talk about a lot, is what made us special may no longer be there or no longer be special because everybody else has that drive. I mean, we as one nation in this region, I look at it as we either all succeed or we either all fail. Like, we're very, very well connected, very interconnected, tightly, in terms of, security, prosperity, culture, even climate. What affects one country affects everybody. So we need to be conscious of our role as Jordan today versus our role 10 years ago and 20 and 30 years ago. I think our role is evolving, and we need to find new DNA, or the new evolution in our DNA, and what will make us special moving forward, and not talk too much and dwell too much on what made us special over the past 20, 30 years, because that's the past. And maybe in the discussion now we can talk about that.
Okay, we will talk about that. But Tamer, let's look at the numbers. I mean, the numbers say, starting 2022, top investments in terms of number of startups, exits, and funds is Saudi, then UAE, then Egypt, and then comes Jordan. And if we look at it, is there really a Jordanian startup or a Saudi startup or an Egyptian startup in terms of VC? Do you really look at the nationality? Does it really make a difference?
Can you hear me? Sorry. To me personally, no. But it really doesn't. What does matter is what is the business being launched and where it's being launched and how big is their addressable market. One thing Laith was talking about is the scarcity. But I also wanted to add to that, on top of scarcity, is the lack of fallback option. When you're in Saudi or you're in the UAE or even Oman, you have access to government roles that pay you very good, lucrative salaries, right? So you have a fallback option. In Jordan and in Egypt and in Lebanon, You don't really have that. So for you, when you go in, you fully commit, which is why you probably have a lot of Jordanian founders. But once you reach a certain stage, being in the Jordanian ecosystem can become a handicap because your addressable market is much smaller. On top of that, the regulatory framework around you could actually put off a lot of potential investors from coming into the investment. So you call it Jordanian founder or Jordanian startup, it really doesn't matter, but ultimately is what regulatory framework are you under and what addressable market you're reaching out to. That's what matters.
I mean, what you said is correct. I mean, nearly every single VC in this room, if you want to invest in a Jordanian setup, let's say go and invest, open up an offshore, go and register in Dubai, recently in Saudi as well, Bahrain, if it's to do with fintech, etc. So we're at a disadvantage in terms of the regulatory laws that are there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just Jordan. If you look at the region, there are only 2 to 3 regulatory frameworks that global investors would be comfortable with. And it's nothing to do with the country, it's to do with which applicable laws and which courts are you going to in case something goes wrong or there's a situation that happens that's out of your control. So it's not about Jordan per se, it's what framework are they following. If Jordan wants to adopt the same framework and follow the same court and arbitration law, yeah, Jordan can have a regulatory framework that's acceptable. But as it stands today, unfortunately, we're not there yet.
We have to...
Very controversial statement.
Yeah, we have to take a few more steps.
Yeah.
We have to keep on moving faster, upgrading our laws, our guidelines, etc. Not just for Jordan, but for the whole region, because there's, as you mentioned, a scarcity of money, other than the government-free money. Okay. Yeah. Before we open it up for questions, most of the VCs, when they come here, they say, even the incubators and accelerators, that the pipeline is weak. You got the same crowd, and then still the idea stage, very, very weak. They need time. They need a lot of work to be done. They need to work on their business, work on their developer, or work on their back end, or work on their front end, etc. So, from your end, how do we deal with that? Shall we go, Ali? And then.
Okay. So when you say weak, it's depends on which angle you're talking about. In terms of technology, depends who's looking. Some investors can't really differentiate between a strong and weak product. So I think maybe this is, and this is something that's easily fixed. So I think I would not really worry about technology or product being weak, but I think the positioning and the reasons behind why you're building this comes from the problem that you're trying to solve. And I think, small countries, small problems in a way, even if you solve it, even if it seems big here, it's still a small
yes.
problem. And the amount of like early adopters and testing and iteration and updates that you get is much slower because of the size of the economy. And I think also targeting that product coming out of Jordan, I think it has to be positioned properly. Jordan as a whole, I believe, has to be repositioned as instead of being innovation, launch, test, grow, and then expand. I think founders need to build for other markets, not the Jordanian market. Build in Jordan, launch outside, expand back into Jordan. Just like the biggest companies kind of show that cycle. You can build it anywhere. You can build in India or Kazakhstan, whatever. But where you launch is where you're building for. So build it for Saudi, build it for UAE, build it for Egypt. That makes a huge difference in how your product shapes up and in terms of strengths and weaknesses, even as in terms of team and how you pitch yourself and the kind of investors that you attract. So early on, if you build in Jordan, for Jordan, you launch in Jordan, you're attracting the investors in Jordan. And investors in Jordan, for the most part, are going to be the very early, whether it's angels, accelerators, incubators. They have a very narrow viewpoint. it's their job, you know, and they're there. They don't have offices and presence outside. So that comes by nature. So they do have this narrow viewpoint, and they share that, and it rubs off on you, and it's like a sounding board that's more of like an echo chamber. But if you manage to attract investors from outside, so I think it's very fortunate if a seed stage company gets Oman Tech Fund as an investor, as an early investor, or some other investor from GCC or Saudi, or because they will start giving them the kind of feedback and point of view that they need to know or they need to see in order to be ready to go into that market. And we shouldn't kid ourselves, you know, you need those markets. And the biggest two markets today are Egypt, Saudi. I think you need to build for these two and then expand into the rest, even like expand back into your home market. There's nothing wrong with that. We need to be commercially driven. It's about money. What makes money eventually will affect the entire ecosystem and create impact.
Great, thank you. Shall we open it up for questions? Do you have the mic, please, over here?
Thank you for the talk. So my name is Abed. So my question is about...
Sorry, you're a startup, another investor?
Tapflow. Yeah, we're a platform to help companies hire tech talent in no time and effort.
Sorry, but if you're a startup, you've got, 10 seconds to pitch your idea to them with your question. No, go ahead.
Okay, so my question is about, so the trend is about expanding to the GCC and to the Saudi market, Egyptian market. So what do you think about expanding to the European and building to the European and the US market? So is it a good idea? What's the limitations? Is it difficult? So why is no one talking about that? Thank you.
Ustaz Yusuf, you like?
Well, I was actually to comment on the access to the region. In fact, we are all connected. Maybe I completely agree with my colleagues, Laith and Amar, about start from the region phase and then you can expand as you go, because you need to collect some evidences. However, I was actually maybe somehow disagree about the scarcity of funding comparing to the scarcity of talented. So I think if there is any talent and the ability to adapt to different market, of course, you need also to think globally, not only regionally. However, my colleagues have highlighted about each market you need also to understand the way of accessing to different markets and also access to fund as well. So I think I agree completely with my colleagues where they say you need also to think about your launching and your growth and all the journey, how to go through it. Maybe they can expand more about it.
Yeah, I think the question is, who do you need on board with you to succeed? So talent and investors. It's not just about money. The type of investor matters. They can push you in the right direction or the wrong direction. So if you're able to go to Europe and network and attract the good investors to invest in you, yes, by all means. But what we're seeing now is that it's much easier for a Jordanian startup to go and talk to a Saudi investor or Omani investor. It's just much closer. But if you have that network, why not? And I think that a lot of founders kind of they devalue or undervalue the type of investor. It's about money, valuation, ticket size, they go for that. It's really, investor can make or break your company. You hear a lot of the stories of success, Kareem and Swivel, but if you dig into what made them, how they got there, and you ask them about the investor and to tell you stories, what that person did for them, it matters a lot. And also talk to those who didn't succeed and ask them about the investor. What did he do for you? What did he do to you? And you'll hear stories where you can point to that, where the failure, of course.
What's your take, Tamer?
to me, it goes back to a comment. I can't remember who said it earlier, or maybe it's the previous session. It's about the uniqueness of the business that you're building and the solution that you're launching. Is it really solving a problem? Is it solving a problem that no one is solving in Europe? Then yeah, obviously go to Europe. Is it solving a problem that someone else is solving in Europe but no one is solving in MENA? Then focus on MENA first, and then look to compete on your differentiation and your uniqueness. I don't think it's black or white, where you don't go to Europe at all until you get the GCC. You can go straight to Europe if your product is solving a problem that Europe needs a solution for. Now, if you're going into a market that's more competitive, that's more saturated, you need a lot more capital to be able to compete, from ad space, from go-to-market, from team, from resources. So it's not recommended at an earlier stage unless you're going to a market where you have a uniqueness and something to sell very quickly. So it's not black or white. There's a lot of ifs and buts. But as Layth said, and obviously, if you have a product and you want to get local investors, they would want to see you succeed in the MENA region first. But I don't think it's black or white, just to put that as a disclaimer.
There's a lot of gray in the middle.
Sorry?
There's a lot of gray in the middle.
There is. It depends on you and your business and what you're solving for.
Or red.
And also
blood.
Blood, okay. Okay.
And also your ability to protect your idea or your products as well. So this is also comes with some extra expense you need to consider.
Yeah, that's a good point. Any other questions?
يعطيكم العافية. My name is On Nawar. I'm going to give you a quick elevator pitch about what I do.
10 seconds.
We're the second agency in the MENA region to use neuromarketing to create brands, experiences, and marketing solutions. Basically, what we do is focus mostly on building sustainable results and ethical results. Recently, it's been very pleasant working with startups, especially in the tech industry. The concept of neuromarketing is being applied very smoothly to them. And I've also been recently exploring the blue ocean strategy, and it's been working very well for us, since that's what we do basically. We are creating a new concept of solutions that is bringing very sustainable and efficient results. I just want your input or advice on how I can maximize my exposure in terms of getting these clients, these startups, or let's say companies in the MENA region.
Sorry, just to understand, you're looking for clients
It's
or
not
other startups?
Not clients, it's more of how to communicate with these clients and what do you think they need most in terms of marketing, startups in the ICT industry.
بصراحة يعني I don't think this panel is the right panel for that question. I mean, it's a marketing question. And you and your team should be the experts on getting customers.
It's not about. No, it's not how to get the clients. It's because you guys are obviously experts in this field.
Which field?
The ICT field.
No, we're talking about,
I mean,
venture capitalists, investment.
Yes, I get that. But what do you think they need in terms of what's missing today in the industry?
Maybe we can take that offline, because we're talking about VCs here with a limited time.
I think I'll just comment one thing.
Please go ahead.
Founders make the mistake thinking that their investor knows their market, their customer, the product.
Exactly.
Some investors have a skill or an operational background. They can help you with a specific problem. Technical, identifying, like recruiting someone who's suitable for that role. But answering product, marketing questions, not the VC's job.
Yep, but it's a very good point. I'll take the next question. But before that, I mean, you mentioned, aren't the VCs, the holy grail for startups and founders? They answer all their questions.
That's the problem.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, VCs have to be. They have to have the skill to help you find the answer, help you think, and help you. I think it's mostly, VCs should just not mess you up. They should not add negative value. They should not ruin things for you. If they do their job properly, they will just open doors for you. They will tell you the picture. They will give you the right feedback. They will tell you the things that you don't want to hear, that you don't tell yourself, and that maybe nobody tells you to your face. That's a good VC. Okay, they'll be honest with you and look after your interests. But the product, if they had these answers, they would be building the company. Yeah. Founders make much more money in a successful startup than the VCs in that successful startup. Founders make much more. So if someone knows all the answers about product and market, then they should be building the company, not you.
Exactly. Yep. So take the next question here.
Good point.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Osama from Team Sarmadi. Basically what we do, we are an AI startup. What we do is providing an automated interpreting tool between different languages for speech, like what we're doing right now. My question is about a controversial point of view suggested by the panel here. Mr. Laith's advice was for Jordanian entrepreneurs was to attract investors from other markets to build for other markets. But Mr. Amer's point of view was that other markets investors are interested in Jordan's regulatory framework. So we have to attract other investors from other markets that who are not interested in our market. So yeah.
It's not really what.
Let Amer elaborate, because what he said is true, so I'll let him explain it better.
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe I need to elaborate on that. As a Jordanian startup, and I think Ziad, you mentioned at the beginning, there are a lot of options to set up an SPV in the Cayman and other markets to put the topco of the entity under. And I'm talking purely legal, not operational. You could still operate an operating entity from Jordan, servicing the region, servicing Europe, whereas the equity and the investment sits at the topco, which could be under regulatory framework that global investors accept. So it's not about where you are sitting, it's more about where your HQ topco is sitting, and that's purely from a legal structure.
I just mentioned one of the best, I think, the most promising companies in OTF's portfolio is Elevatus. Right? It's an AI company here in Jordan, but they're not registered in Jordan. They don't even employ people like on an employment they're all contractors, and they're registered. I think BVI.
UK.
I think BVI.
Yeah, BVI.
So that's an example.
Yeah. And just to put like a wrapping around it, Jordanian-based operating entities are very strong, right? And they've been backed a lot. So I can name. Actually, we invested together in a Jordanian startup that's not servicing the GCC, servicing the global. Right, and their operations and HQ is sitting, I think, do you remember where? UAE? No, I don't think it was UAE. I think it was in the Dutch, in Holland.
Which?
Sorry? Eon Dental.
Eon Dental.
So they sell in Singapore, US, Europe, and their HQ and operating HQ is sitting in Jordan. So it's not about where your operational HQ is, it's where your legal regulatory framework where you need to put the cash in and issue equity on that.
Okay, great. We've run out of time. Sorry about that. If we wrap up, piece of advice.
Basically, don't build for Jordan. Eventually, Jordan will come, but you're building it anyway, and you're spending that money and time. Unless this problem is unique and huge in this country, don't build for Jordan. Go to that other market, spend some time on the ground, talk to the people, get a co-founder who's local there if you need a co-founder, and start networking with investors who will be the right sounding board.
Great. Ustaz Youssef?
I was to tell the same advice that Laith just a while, talking about your product as an entrepreneur. So it's your idea, your product, you know how to develop it further. So you believe on your ability to take it further. So it's your core business and your core idea. Then VCs here is to help you going further with the idea. So focus into whatever you are having as talented.
Amer?
Yeah, just to, I mean, obviously I echo the same opinions shared, but at the same time, just don't be put off by the hardship. It's not easy. You will face a lot of challenges in every step. And in fact, they're not just for the pre-funding stage. They will continue throughout your growth all the way to an exit. Just take it a day at a time and keep, working hard, and eventually hopefully it will work out.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the session.
Thank you, everyone.
And as a reminder, the Investor Lounge meetings are going on throughout the day, and there's a competition here at 5 p.m.
And we will be here at 2 after lunch with a lot of interesting panels as well. Thank you, everyone.